Hi, I'm Glenn Rogers, and this is American Perspectives. In this video, we're going to be talking about education or propaganda. And there's a question mark at the end of that. And what I'm getting at is what's going on in our schools. Or are our children being educated, or are they just being indoctrinated with propaganda? Have American schools become battlefields of ideological warfare? And our kids, whether they're in the first grade or whether they're a junior in college, right, are our kids just pawns on this battlefield of ideological warfare? That's what we're going to talk about here in just a moment. But first, let me pause and ask if you would help us out by subscribing to our channel. That would be very helpful. There's a little button down there at the bottom that you can click. It says subscribe, and then there's another one that gives you a thumbs up. That means you like the video, and that would be very helpful to us. It'll allow more people to see this video. So if you can, if you would, go ahead and subscribe and like this video. Okay, so what about this idea of either education or propaganda? Or does it have to be one or the other? Can it be a little bit of each? Well, I suspect that maybe in some cases it's a little bit of each. But here's the thing. There are some states that are actively resisting that Marxist propaganda be allowed in the schools of their states. I looked this up the other day. There are several states, by the way, they're all red states, who are busy passing laws, getting them passed, getting it through committee, getting them ready, and the governors are ready to sign, which would make it illegal to teach certain subjects in the curriculum of that state. And yet there are many other cities and states, not red states, that are including subjects like critical race theory and Project 1619 and various versions of gender identity sensitivity courses and that sort of thing. And they're teaching that socialism is a better economic path than capitalism, okay? And so what it comes down to is that at present, right now, in 2021, in America, whether your school-age kids or grandkids, whichever, are being taught these Marxist ideas or not, just sort of depends on where you live. If you live in a red state, then maybe your kids are not being taught these things, but if you live in a blue state, they probably are. And even if they're not being taught these ideas in K through 12 schools, as soon as your kids or your grandkids go to college, even in some Christian universities, okay, they will be confronted with some form of Marxism, whether it's critical race theory or Project 1619 or socialism or some other form of Marxism. They will be confronted with it, and the professors will try to teach them these things. And in fact, I know of a private Christian university where the professor is demanding that the students embrace these ideas. Okay, you know, it used to be, let me present this, and then you decide to accept it or reject it or whatever. No, now students are being required to buy into some of these ideas. And I suspect that many parents, and grandparents maybe also, do not think that what's going on in many of our schools across the country today is as bad as some people are making it out to be, people like me. Right, and I think they're thinking, he's exaggerating. It's all, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not exaggerating. It is as bad as what I'm saying it is, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. I want you to consider what has just happened in the state of California. Now, I know that as soon as I say California, a whole bunch of you out there are going to go, oh, well, yeah, but that's in California. Those people are all crazy anyway. They're a bunch of nuts out there. They'll do anything, right? Well, okay, first, it's not just in California. It's in other places as well. And it's on the East Coast and on the West Coast. And what that means is eventually it's going to come into the middle. Now, I don't normally spend a lot of time reading other people's material, but I have an article here, and it was done in the publication Commentary. Okay, that's what it's from, and it was written by Samantha Chang, and this is dated March 11, 2021. So it's just about a month ago when this was published. And I want to read to you what this is about. It says the California Department of Education might soon transform the state's 10,000 public schools into left-wing incubators that brainwash children with anti-Christian, anti-white propaganda. Now, first, let me go back and read the headline. Okay, read this up here. I didn't read it to you. It says, curriculum author calls for counter-genocide of white Christians, urges kids to pray to Aztec gods. Okay, so that's the headline. Now, let's go on reading this and see what you think about this. It says the alarming agenda was spotlighted Wednesday in a City Journal column by website's contributing editor Christopher Rufo, who's also the director of Discovery Institute, a nonprofit public policy think tank. And what he says in that article is that next week, the California Department of Education will vote on a new statewide ethnic studies curriculum that advocates for the decolonization of American society and elevates Aztec religious symbolism, all in the service of left-wing political ideology. The new program is called the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, and it would teach the 6 million students in California's primary and secondary schools to oppose white oppressors and reject the Christian God by chanting to the pagan Aztec god of human sacrifice. Rufo explained, the chants have a clear implication: the displacement of the Christian God, which is said to be an extension of white supremacist oppression, and the restoration of the indigenous gods to their rightful place in the social justice cosmology. Rufo said the curriculum is based on The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, a book by the late Brazilian activist Paulo Freire, a self-proclaimed Marxist. Freire believed that the goal of education was to mold children by indoctrinating them with left-wing ideology, not to arm them with practical knowledge or skills. Along this vein, the purpose of the California curriculum is to brainwash children with anti-Christian, anti-white rhetoric about white supremacy and racism, with the ultimate goal of overthrowing Western civilization. The anti-Christian part of California's ethnic studies curriculum is predicated on the left-wing talking point that Christianity is based on white supremacy. Much of the material was developed by R. Tolteca Cahouten, the original co-chairman of the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum. And I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I may be getting it wrong. If I am, I apologize. Cahouten developed a related mandala claiming that white Christians committed theocide against indigenous tribes, killing their gods and replacing them with Christianity. The ultimate goal is to decolonize American society and establish a new regime of counter-genocide and counter-hegemony, which will displace white culture, like the race hustling initiatives such as the 1619 Project. California's new curriculum is predicated on the anti-American premise that the United States must be destroyed and rebuilt on a foundation of wokeness. This sinister trend, of indoctrinating children to hate America, reject Christianity, and blame white people for all of society's woes has metastasized around the country and across the globe. It's not a movement that's exclusive to the Democratic-controlled state of California either. Last month, a New York City public school principal urged white parents to become white traitors who must advocate for white abolition. Now, there's a few other comments in here before the article ends, but that's enough for you to get an idea of what this is about. Now, here's the really scary part. I mean, it's bad enough that somebody would actually propose this and put it out, publicly. But here's the scary part. The California Department of Education voted to accept this curriculum. Now, they didn't make it mandatory yet. At this point, it's volunteer. Okay, but here's what happens. It always starts like that. This is voluntary. You can do this or not. And in a couple of years, they send out a memo that says, by the way, here's the new curriculum that's mandatory, and these are the books you'll use, and here's the things that you will say. Okay, so California already did this, and you got people in New York in the public school system telling parents, white parents, that they need to be a traitor to their own people and work to establish, white abolition. And there are other states that are going to be adopting similar measures. This is not as out there as you think it is, and not as crazy as you think it is. This is already happening in parts of the country. And they're not even trying to hide it anymore. That's one of the scary things. It used to be they would go quietly somewhere and close the doors and have a meeting, and they would talk about what they're going to do, and they go, shh, we can't let anybody know this. We got to wear. Not anymore. They're so brass about it, so brazen, that it's out in the public. They're saying, we're going to destroy white society, and we're going to eliminate Christianity from society. That's what they're talking about doing. Now, does this mean that everybody that works in Washington who's not a Republican is advocating this sort of stuff? No, it doesn't mean that. Everybody's not going off the deep end all at once. But the fact is that there are some states who are outlawing teaching this kind of stuff, critical race theory and Project 1619 socialism and other such things, and the kind of things that are in this article. But other states, are accepting this stuff, and they're teaching it. And here's what's going to happen. In time, America is going to be even more divided than we already are. And right now, we're more divided than we have ever been as a nation since the Civil War. Okay? But it's only going to get worse as more and more of this kind of stuff makes its way into the schools, and our children are being taught these sorts of things. More and more parents and grandparents are going to, get sick of it and finally start to speak up and do something about it. And our country is going to be even more divided. Okay? Do we want our children to be taught this kind of extreme Marxism ideology? I don't think so. Our educational system is being used to turn our young people into people who not only are Marxist, but people who hate Christianity and who hate America and who hate white people, their parents. And the question is, how long are we going to tolerate this? How long before we decide to do something about it? Some states are doing something about it, but others are not. You need to write your elected officials and address this issue. Well, that's my thoughts in this video. I hope it was interesting and informative. I hope you got upset by it, because we need to get upset with stuff like this going on. But I'm glad you watched this video. Hope you'll watch some more. I want to remind you that I have a book out there. It's called A Bunch of Really Good Reasons to Be a Republican. You can get it through Amazon or Barnes & Noble online, and it'll help you figure out kind of what's going on with our political system today. It provides a good historical overview of what's been happening since the early years of our country. So thank you for watching. I hope you'll watch again. Have a good day. Thanks.